I get asked all the time about what medication I take and what works for me and what the side effects have been. And while I am absolutely not qualified to offer advice about what medication to take, and I always try to encourage people to talk to a doctor about that, I can at the very least talk about my personal experience having been on medication for half my life and what my experiences have been like in therapy. First of all, I don't tell people what medication I'm currently taking, and I do this for a few reasons. Partly because I don't want people to go asking their doctors to be put on the same medications as me, because you never know what might or might not work for a person, and what might work for me might give another person horrible side effects or not be effective. So I don't want to put anyone through that, and I don't want people getting their information about medication from a layperson like me. Like I said, I'm not qualified to talk about that kind of stuff. And aside from that, I have found that a lot of time when I talk about my medication, specifically like what medication I'm on and what dosage I take, people do this thing where they compare and compete about medication, and I just feel like that is kind of silly, honestly, because some people are medication resistant and it takes them a lot heavier of a dosage to get the same effect as someone on a lighter dosage. It's not an indication of how severe your mental illness is. It has to do with your body and your brain chemistry and how you absorb medications. So it's absolutely not a game of who's worst off. And by the way, I just didn't sign up to play that game. I don't like to be the worst off, so I don't want to compete or be drawn into competing to be the worst off. For instance, one time I was talking to this guy who is always trying to be the most mentally ill person in the room, and he often exaggerates, which bothers me because he will talk about having had experiences that he actually hasn't, and he will talk about having been in psychosis while he had never actually had those symptoms. So when he'd be in a large group of people, he would talk like he knew what he was talking about. But when it was just him and me and another schizoaffective person, he had nothing to contribute to the conversation. When he talked about one of his medications and found out that he was on like 100 milligrams more than me, he got really cocky, and I didn't like that because I am happy to be on a lower dosage than him. Like, I actually want to be on a lower dosage, and I've been working really hard to not be on such heavy doses. And beside that, I take like a huge combination of medication. It's not the only one I'm on. It's one working in conjunction with like a lot of others. Also, sometimes it does kind of suck to be the person on a heavier dose and not realize it. Like the time I was talking with a friend and we took the same medication, and she asked what dose I was on, and I said I was on 120 milligrams, and then she said she was only on 40. And I was shocked because I didn't know it went as low as 40, and I didn't realize that 120 was a high dosage, let alone like how much higher than hers. And so I actually felt a little embarrassed, honestly, to be taking such a heavy amount of medication compared to her. So that's another reason why I don't talk specifically about medication and dosage. I just feel like that's not something I signed up for. That's not a game I want to play. And if I have a close friend and I feel like they're the kind of person I can talk about this with, like, yeah, we'll laugh about our medication, but it's not something I just talk about with everyone. I will, however, tell people what combination of medication works for me, because I don't see the harm in necessarily saying, the type of medication. So as a person with schizoaffective disorder, borderline personality disorder, and CPTSD, I will say that for me, the combination of mood stabilizer, antipsychotic, and anxiety meds is the golden ratio, right? Because I need the mood to be stabilized, and I need the psychosis to be stabilized, and I need the anxiety that comes with CPTSD and borderline stabilized. So that combination is perfect. Plus, I've just been on a lot of medication, and so I will share with you my list of everything I've taken. And mind you, this is not a lot, but to me, it does feel like a lot because it's like about 20 medications, and this is spanning 15 years of therapy and psychiatry to get to the point that I have finally, for the first time, been on a stable dose of medication. Here we go. I have been on olanzapine, hydroxyzine, Latuda, lamotrigine, risperidone or risperidone, Abilify, Ativan, Lexapro, Depakote, Prazosin, Buspar, Trazodone, Carvedilol, Guanfacine, Adderall, Vyvanse, Daytrana, Nuvigil, Ritalin, and Sunosi, plus one from a really long time ago that I can't remember the name of. It was the very first medication I was ever prescribed, and it's beyond me. I've had varying degrees of success and failure with these medications. I have had a lot of side effects, but surprisingly, most of them, maybe not most of them, but a lot of them have not caused side effects. They were just ineffective. And so I've especially had side effects with the antipsychotics. They've been the more severe side effects. Some of them have been a little bit embarrassing. And, I'm an open book, so I'm totally fine telling you what they were, because I feel like some of them I didn't know were side effects. My doctors didn't tell me were side effects, and I had to find out the hard way, which I wish people knew more about. On the antipsychotics, which I'm just going to talk about the side effects from those because the other side effects from other medications were not terribly severe. On the antipsychotics, one major one that I feel like is the most common was weight gain. And we're talking like a lot of pounds really fast. So within 3 months, I would say, each time I would go on a different antipsychotic, I would gain like 40 or 50 pounds. And before that, I had always been rail thin because I've been on Adderall since high school. So I had just always been almost underweight, if not underweight, from having been on amphetamines for so long. So this was the first time my body had like a shape, and it was a major adjustment to happen so quickly, like overnight. And I had a lot of body dysmorphia just from how drastically my body changed. And I actually really like my body today, and I think I look great, and I feel so much healthier than when I was on amphetamines. But it definitely was a major adjustment to get used to gaining that much weight so quickly. It's also incredibly hard to get the weight off. And that's another thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, is that your body is just kind of resistant to losing that weight. So I had to work out a lot to get to like a healthier size, which, wasn't a huge drastic change. Certainly not like the pounds I packed on overnight, but it was pretty hard because I'd always been very physically active and fit, and this was a huge change for me. Another side effect that really blindsided me was tardive dyskinesia, and this is another fairly common one, and they've started coming out with medications to treat tardive dyskinesia. It can be mistaken as a medication-induced Parkinson's, and if you treat either of those incorrectly, like if you treat either of those for the wrong condition, it can really exacerbate it. Thankfully for me, I was able to get rid of the tardive dyskinesia, which is not true of everyone. Did I say that I was on Seroquel? I just kind of broke my secret, right, about which medication caused which side effect, but regardless, any antipsychotic can cause tardive dyskinesia, so it doesn't matter that it was Seroquel, but it was Seroquel, and when I got off of that, I was able to get rid of it. Like I said, it's not true of everyone. I didn't know what it was, and the only reason I found out was because there was a commercial on TV for tardive dyskinesia medication, and that was the only way I would have known what that was. Basically, it took over my motor functioning, and my hands and my feet would constantly be like moving, and my mouth would constantly be like moving, and it was very embarrassing, and I would often try to like hide my mouth, and it was kind of unnerving because, like I said, I didn't know this was a side effect. The last really major one was the one that scared me the most, and this is actually one that can happen in both men and women, and this was lactation. My prolactin levels were through the roof, and though I was not pregnant and had no children and have never been pregnant, I was lactating. That was pretty alarming because, again, no one told me that was a side effect. I really wish doctors would talk about side effects more. And so I thought there was like some kind of an issue like breast cancer or something. And although I'm very young for breast cancer, it does run in my family. So I saw an endocrinologist who had me do an MRI just to reveal that it was actually my medication. And even after getting off of that medication, I lactated for another year or so. I went on another antipsychotic in the future that caused the same problem. At least this time I knew that it was a side effect and I wasn't as concerned. But if no one tells you that these are the side effects, you can imagine it would be pretty alarming. Like when your body just suddenly takes over and causes these random problems out of nowhere with no warning, problems that you have no connection to, that you don't know what caused it. Yeah, it's alarming. Anyway, I didn't really get into therapy. I feel like that's an entirely different video, and I've had some really wild experiences in therapy with some great therapists and a few totally shitty ones, a few totally shitty psychiatrists that completely fucked me up. But you know, I'm a lot better today with the help of the therapist I do have now, so I'm very grateful for her. And again, that'll be a video for another time, so look forward to that. So thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I really appreciate your views, and if you'd like to see more of my content, I come out with new videos every Monday and Thursday. Stick around, there'll be another one coming out soon. Thank you so much. Bye.